The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Here we go, baby. The madness is on. K4Wins. K4Wins, the K4 brothers. It is Case Keefer. He is, of course, the executive director, chief editor of the Las Vegas Sun. Below us, he's live in Las Vegas. Gregory, good friend of the show, and, of course, in the starting lineup as well. You can see him. He's unbelievable handicapper on both sides of the ledger. I've been doing this for 4 decades. I'm Tony Kurre, worked at ESPN Sports Radio for the last 20 years. Between the three of us and Kip Keefer, who is the executive director of the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, hopefully he'll join us here in just a few minutes. We are K4. We have 67 total games in March Madness, and we've already played 20. And I don't want to blow you away, but it goes by so flipping fast. For people that sit there and say, "Man, I don't want to see an expansion. I don't want to see any more teams." Why not, man? It goes by too flipping fast. Unlike the NBA playoffs, which seems like it takes forever, and I love that too. I would love March Madness lasting another weekend. Favorites 7-13 against the spread. Over/unders 10-10. The SEC is 3-1 so far, and the Big Ten is 5-1. Duke got scared. VCU had an historic comeback. Miami of Ohio said we belong, and they certainly do. I got the Billikens going against Michigan next. We have a full slate of games we're going to get into. We're going to go game by game today and get your guys' thoughts on those things, and I think that'll pretty much be the show. And, of course, we also have a full slate going on tomorrow as well. We already have numbers for, so we'll get into it. But I'll start with Case Keefer, man. So far, first day in, fantastic tournament so far. We haven't had just a buttload of buzzer beaters or anything like that, but we had a 12 over a 5 already. We've had some little surprises.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun, especially I think that morning window. I happened to be I'm in some contests, so I had to make the rounds. I was in a book for the end of that morning window where South Florida had the crazy cover. Wisconsin went down. Duke was down 12 at halftime. Certainly Las Vegas was buzzing a lot during that. And I know there were some memorable moments throughout the rest of the day. Like you mentioned, VCU and some other decent games, although the night slate didn't turn out that good. But yeah, the opening morning slate, I feel like usually you're lucky if there's one good game in there, but they were, and Ohio State TCU came down to the final second too. So that was a really strong start on Thursday, and hopefully we get more of where that came from today.
South Florida, my first Sweet 16 team to get bounced out. I won 11-5 in the first 16. Yeah, I really liked them, and I saw them down 19. I was like, wow. And if they'd played an extra 5 minutes, I think they would have got through. That Duke game, by the way, the largest deficit they've ever overcome in program history to come back and win in a tournament game. Kai, what stuck out to you over the last couple of days?
The horseshoe up my ass yesterday, gambling, because I was huge on South Florida, plus 4.5.
Nice.
I had gotten to 7, dropped down to 4.5, and I almost went the other way. I was like, oh, and I still hammered it. I was like, oh my God, how in the world did I win? That is not supposed to happen. But I talking about these games, I loved the morning games, and I think they set it up this year to where the morning games were going to be better. The night games, all the favorites, it was, blah, blah. I was really impressed with VCU yesterday. I do recall somebody on here with the initials T and K talking about VCU and how he thought that was a big win going to be a big win. And obviously it was. Talk us into it. I got to jump right in, Tony. I mean, I have been, and I know we're going to go game by game, but I can't slow myself down. I have been on Santa Clara all the way until this morning, and now I'm thinking Kentucky. And am I crazy?
Well, you're not the only one because everyone else is on Kentucky too. It's gone up to 3.5. Let's talk to the pro here. It opened at 2.5, and it's up to 3.5. Kentucky right now over under 157.5. And Kentucky, along with Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, and Missouri, all SEC teams going off today. Case, what you think?
Yeah, it's bounced around a little bit. I don't know when I bet this, and not a huge bet or anything, but I did. I took Santa Clara plus 4 at some point, which isn't available now. I don't know. I know Kentucky gets a lot of crap with how they've had bad stretches of the season throughout, but I just think it can't go underreported just how beat up they are, and they're just not a team I'm looking to bet. I mean, they planned on building the team around Lowe and Quaintance, and they haven't played for month and a half. And Santa Clara's offense, I mean, you just know Herb Sendek's going to be flying. I don't think Kentucky does anything exceptionally well right now. So yeah, I bet Santa Clara. It was kind of slim value. I made it 2.5. Like you said, open 2.5. If it wasn't the NCAA tournament, I might not even be betting it. But I lean Santa Clara there.
And again, it's one of those games where if you're just a peripheral fan, you're like, wait a minute, I haven't even heard of Santa Clara and Kentucky. Aren't they supposed to be pretty good? Didn't they have that Calipari guy who's also in the tournament? And you're thinking to yourself, all they got to do is win the game. Not necessarily. 3.5 is the spread. So they could win 80-78, something like that. That should be interesting. The other game that's on this first page, I think, is interesting. We'll go line by line. We'll go game by game because we got the time. I want to get into the games on Saturday too, man. Some of the games tomorrow are just going to be fantastic. I just cannot wait. But Alabama Hofstra, I mentioned on the starting lineup that they lost a guy who was averaging 16.2 points per game. That would be Aiden Holloway. And of course, Badako goes out. He was averaging 10. You got Holloway, who was averaging 16.2 and about 8 boards, by the way, and now he's out. Does that play at all into the Hofstra line being at 11.5, Kai?
Yeah, it absolutely plays into it. But I don't know what to do with this game anymore. I mean, what's crazy is at 14, when I thought Holloway was playing, I liked Hofstra in this situation, thinking we're going to go over into this game, and now I don't know what to do. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't. And Nate Oates, I think, is the same way. If you saw him yesterday, and I'm tired of seeing him. They were talking about perhaps bringing Aiden back. I don't even know how that's a possibility. He's been thrown off the campus. But if there's a guy who can bring him back, Nate would probably be the one case. But yeah, I think it's maybe one of those things where if you don't have to bet it, just sit back and watch a little bit. But when you lose a 16-point guy, that's a huge part of your offense.
Yeah, I'm really kicking myself on this one. Kind of different approaches. I mean, most people are probably kicking themselves and bitching when they lose a game at the buzzer. To me, I was actually writing about this game, I think, or maybe it was right after the Aiden Holloway news broke, because that was pretty early, right? It was early Monday, and I had seen the night before when I went to bed, I think Alabama had gotten bet up to 14, which is about, I think, exactly where I made it, actually. Yeah, I had them a 14-point favorite at full strength on Sunday night. So I'm sitting there. The Holloway news probably been out like an hour or whatever. I'm like, there's no way he's playing this weekend. And the line had only moved a half point. I think I even wrote, why is this only moved a half point? Mm-hmm. It's stuck at 13.5 for a good long time. And I still, it spooked me. I just feel like the market's usually more on top of this stuff. So I didn't end up betting Hofstra at 13.5. Now, where are we right before tip-off? I think it's right more where it needs to be. I mean, I think he's certainly worth a couple points. So I'm really mad. I didn't bet Hofstra at that point. I mean, even if they lose, it's very possible. I mean, just the style Alabama plays and the variance. I mean, you can end up with egg on your face easily, and they could win this game by 30 regardless. But I don't know. My whole philosophy is just make the most good bets you can and live with the results. And I think I had a chance to make a really good bet at Hofstra plus 13.5. So that took a long time to move, and I didn't do it. Now at 11.5, like I said, I feel like his impact has been adequately addressed in the line now, and I couldn't force a play either way. But I'm pretty mad. It's just a reminder to be on top of those news, and sometimes don't question yourself. So I'm just like, what am I missing? I know Oates' reputation is kind of let the guy play through everything. Yeah. So maybe everybody was just like, maybe he'll play anyway. Although just my first reaction was no way this weekend, and I wish I would have acted on it.
K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com. You can see him in the bottom left-hand corner, the executive director of the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, and I'm hoping he can hear us. Kip Keefer, welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
Loud and clear. Can you guys actually hear me?
That's fantastic, man. Let's jump.
Very clear. It's like HD.
Let's jump right into it.
Yeah. Wow.
Let's jump into it. We're 15 minutes in. Let's go. Alabama. We were talking about them giving up about 11.5 or 12. That line's been sitting there. It appears the Aiden Holloway absence is not changing the line that much. Are you surprised?
Not really. I knew it would change it a little bit, but Alabama's still going to be presumed to be the better team because they're from the big conference. And we saw a great example of that last night with the St. Louis, Georgia game. Wasn't that impressive? Good grief. But I'd go back to the question. I think Hofstra could be problematic for them because they get great guard play from everything I've read and seen. I've not seen Hofstra. I don't even know what their nickname is. I know they're in New York. But
Pride.
No, thank you. But I think Alabama's style is going to be problematic for a lot of teams. And as key as Holloway is as far as his contribution to the team, I think you got guys like Wright-Sell and the freshman Amari Allen that can step up and step into that role. So I don't really see a big reason to dramatically adjust the line that Holloway's out. But I still look at this game as kind of a toss-up, especially at 11.5. If I had to bet it, I would take the points here. I think Hofstra's going to be competitive. I think a lot of these teams have been competitive when these inflated double-digit lines are there. There's not been too many cases where those teams haven't stepped up and performed well.
We have talked about the Dogs covering 13 at 65% of the time out of the 20 games we played so far. Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, Missouri, all SEC teams going today. I'm just going for games that I think are just really interesting. You can call them smelly fishes. You can talk about public perception. You can talk about where the public money's coming. We're going to go line by line on all these games. So if you guys got a game you want to play, jump right in. We're getting into it. But I'm just going down the page. Another game I think is really strange. The Big Blue of Utah State actually favored against Villanova, against the big bad Big East, who normally has an average of 9.3 teams in yearly the last 20 years. This year, only 3 teams in, along with UConn and St. John's. Why is Villanova an underdog against Utah State, Case?
The Utah State team's really good. I think on paper they're better than Villanova. I think the only reason why they're not favored by more is possibly because no one wants to bet on the Mountain West team, because the Mountain West have just been terrible in the tournament for the last 15 years or whatever. But I mean, on paper, a lot of times you could say, well, the Mountain West, the athletes of the bigger conference they're going up against. I really think Utah State's probably more athletic than Villanova. I mean, with Mason Thalsev and MJ Collins, I mean, they have a couple guys that could start on any team in the nation. They play a really smart style. They're well coached. I made the line 1.5, so I made it right where it is. My gut tells me Utah State should win this game, but man, it's just the Mountain West. I mean, I know there's been some studies that they probably have the best home court advantage as a conference whole as any conference in the country, just because all these venues and weird places at elevation. So part of the theory of why they underperform in non-conference is just without those. But I don't know. Villanova, I feel like is still kind of in a transitional phase. Willard, I feel like he's going to have more money to put together a better roster in the future. And I guess most of the Big East teams are playing today, right? I don't know how many played. I just have this theory that the Big East this year was very, very down. I'm not high on the Big East teams at all. I mean, I think for how weakened the conference has been over the years, it's still been very, very good over the last 6 or 7 years since all the teams left, or a decade, whatever it's been. But I don't know. This year, I'm very skeptical of all those teams. And I just so I guess long way to say I have no problem with the number. I don't have a bet either way, but I guess. This one, or if I had to make a bet, I'd be on Utah State. I like their talent a little bit better.
The Big Blue, by the way, is a bull. Just in case you're wondering, the Big Blue Bulls, Utah State, and again, they're only giving up 1.5. And strange enough, too, you look at a game like this, and I always like to see how they've done against the spread. They're actually under 500. They're 15-18 against the spread, so they're not really surprising anybody, and they're not really a covering machine. I want to look at the next game real quick. Real interesting game.
Put this in front of the East this year. Okay. So it's not the Big East anymore; it's the Big Least.
The Big Least.
And, they're not going anywhere this year.
There you go. And I tell you, you can make an argument that maybe this NIL thing is finally starting to hurt some conferences, because the Big East is not known to have a ton of cash unless they're keeping it in their pockets up in the Northeast for sure. Miami and Tennessee. Miami of Ohio gets it done. They were an 8-point dog in that first game against SMU. They got tied a couple times, got down a little late by a couple points, and just came blowing back. Their 3-pointers were jumping all over the place. And now, of course, they're catching 12.5 against your Tennessee Volunteers. Kai, what you think?
My favorite bet of the tournament so far is Miami over their team total, 68 today. Absolutely love it. I mean, you bet this game. If Tennessee's smart, they've paid attention, and they are going to make Miami of Ohio drive to the goal, because they don't have anywhere near the size of Tennessee, and Tennessee's going to pound it inside and get them in foul trouble, which is just going to open up Miami of Ohio, because Tennessee does not guard the 3-point line really well, and they always foul at least one 3-point shooter in the game. If that was a stat that I could bet on, I would bet over whatever it was on Tennessee's fouls on a 3-point shot, because they do it every game. I'm going to pull in for Tennessee. I hope they win. I think Miami plus 12, if you can get there, is a good bet. But I really like Miami over their team total over 68. It's my favorite play.
There's your first play.
They'll probably lose, but
hey, no, you've been on fire, man. You basically everything you've told. You hit that Purdue game the other night. You hit it huge. You said it was the best game of the year you hit, and you said take it, whatever it is. It could be 20. I'll take Purdue, and they covered. So you've been on fire. So get after it for sure. Another game I think is really interesting. Again, we're going to go game by game through all these, so we're not going to miss anything. Kansas giving it 14.5 against California Baptist.
Are there Baptists in California?
Evidently there is. Evidently there is. And I just bring up, it's kind of a smelly fish. It looks like this one looks like if it was a preseason game, Kansas would be favored by 40. What's up with this game, Kip?
I don't know. Kansas is just in such a slide, and who knows? Supposedly, I hear it. I have no idea what his name is. I hear Cal Baptist is kind of a one-man show. Case probably has
Daniels.
Yeah, there we go. And when I looked up his stats, he's only averaging 24 a game. I expected the little blurb I read somewhere that he was averaging like 40, but still, you would certainly think that Kansas could muster up the forces to handle this game. But Case is our West Coast guy. Case, were you familiar with Cal Baptist? I was shocked. I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably deeper in the weeds than a lot of people, but yeah, they've been pretty good the last few years, and they're in the WAC now. I think they had a really good team last year. They couldn't break through in the tournament. I did think Utah Valley was the best team in the WAC, and I think Daniels came back and beat them by like 1 in the conference championship game. So, I was certainly familiar. I think they were the 2 in the WAC, so they had a pretty good year. I think it's I know you can't really complain as a Kansas fan from any perspective. I think it's kind of BS. They have to play this game in San Diego. Cal Baptist is in Riverside. It's like an hour and a half drive.
A home game for their 12 students, yes.
Hold on, as a Kansas fan, you cannot complain about anything ever in basketball or any place that anybody else gets to play.
I'm not, and I'm not from a fan perspective, but from a betting perspective, I would. I know people might roll their eyes and say that's ridiculous. There's only a few people in the stands, but I probably did account like a half point for that. Just Cal Baptist getting to play so close to home. It usually doesn't. It's
like a Duke fan complaining when fouls are called on them.
Oh, and I also want to say on the other game, what do you do it? Wear black because it's going to be a funeral. I don't see Miami of Ohio hanging with Tennessee at all. I slammed Tennessee minus 11. I love that Miami of Ohio won. I was on them against SMU. I wanted them to be in the tournament, but they haven't played anyone with the size, the athleticism, anything of Tennessee this year. I feel like it runs out today.
By the way, we talked about this on the starting lineup. That East has got Patino, Self, Hurley, Izzo, and Shire all in that bracket. You want to talk about 6 national championships. You talk about a serious bracket. That's unbelievable. Yeah, Kansas giving up the 14. They get California Baptist. By the way, those 2 teams, California Baptist and Kansas, combined 22 and 40 in over-unders this year. So if you're looking at games going under, perhaps that's one you want to look at right now. It's at 139.5. You got a thought on that?
No, that was one thing I really wanted to say. I got sidetracked because I feel stronger about the Tennessee game. Even though 12, it's getting a little tougher. I bet 11 at open. I actually did bet a little bit Cal Baptist plus 14.5, and largely kind of correlated to what you said. The reason I did that, and I don't think Kansas is going to lose, but both these teams play really, really slow, which people wouldn't realize. Kansas has, these NBA guys and has as much talent as ever. You'd think they'd be running it a little more, but they've slowed it down a lot throughout the year, and Cal Baptist is one of the slowest teams in the tournament. So I just don't think there's going to be a ton of possessions to separate from here. The total was already pretty low. I don't remember what it was, so I didn't ultimately bet the under, but I did bet a little bit Cal Baptist.
It actually opened at 130. It actually opened at 133.5. It's up to 139.5. So it's gone up the other way. Everyone's betting the over in this game. And I've bet overs on Kansas games so many times and gotten bitten because of their defense. They always throw up a 55 spot whenever I get the over in Kansas. So I'm going to stay away from it. But yeah, if I had to jump, I think it's a little high at this point. Saturday games, man. St. Louis, Michigan, Louisville, Michigan State, TCU, Duke. Duke had a weird game yesterday for sure. A&M, Houston, we'll get into that. Dayton, UNC, Wilmington, Texas, Gonzaga, VCU, Illinois, Vanderbilt, Nebraska, and then, of course, High Point, Arkansas. We got some monster games we'll get into. Anything else going on today? Our first game goes off at 11:15 this morning. That is Santa Clara in Kentucky, Akron, Texas Tech, LIU, Arizona. I know you guys have looked at the full slate of games. Give me some other games you guys are looking at today that really bring some value. Kip, we'll look at you first. Wright State, Virginia, Tennessee State, Iowa State. We mentioned Hofstra, Alabama, Iowa, Clemson, which is very interesting. My son is in town. We're going to go hit B-dubs right after this. Let's go there. Clemson catching 2.5 against Iowa, the Big Ten. I know that's one of your favorite conferences. Kip, what do you think about that game?
Yeah, I was very disappointed to see the Big Ten stumble yesterday, and I don't think Iowa really. I didn't do a formal list of who was going to be in the tournament. I thought they were strictly on the bubble, so I was kind of surprised they got included. I got to think Clemson's a better team than Iowa, and so I like that line being pretty tight. I'll go with Team Curry here and go with the Clemson Tigers. So count me in there. I also just mentioned Wright State, who I've been doing a little reading on. I really don't know a lot about them. They're getting 17.5. I just don't look at Virginia as that explosive a team. They're kind of a grinded out kind of bunch from my perception. And I'm sure that one of the experts here will tell me I'm wrong, that their statistics that's just a perception on my part. I haven't done a lot of data research, but I just don't like giving 17.5 from Virginia to anybody. So that's a game that I did kind of notice that if I were inclined and did a little bit more research, just instinctively, I would gladly accept 17.5 in a matchup of virtually anybody in this tournament with Virginia.
Wright State is the Rowdy Raiders case. You like them plus 17.5. I kind of agree with Kip on this one because Virginia can't slow it down, obviously known for their defense. Not so much. They've given up over 75 the last 6 games. What's your thoughts?
No, but I don't really like Virginia either. I made it 17.5. It is basically 17.5. I do think there's a perception, like Kip said, that Virginia is more of a grinded out team, but I don't really think that's true anymore with Ryan Odom. They do still play slow, but they shoot as many threes as any team in the tournament now. I mean, they just fire threes, so it's pretty easy for them to win by margin. I mean, that being said, I didn't bet it. I don't even remember who I picked. I picked every game at LasVegasSun.com, and this one definitely would have been a guess. I'm guessing I probably lean towards Virginia. I just Wright State, I think, is super young. The Horizon is another league that I feel like was down a little bit this year. We've seen better Horizons in the past. So I think with that, I probably, just if I had to make a pick, was on Virginia, but not a game I have strong feelings on at all. I was impressed by Virginia down the stretch of the season. I mean, it seems like they've won 16 of 17 or something now off the top of my head. So they could make some noise. I mean, Virginia, Tennessee would be a great game in the next round, but we'll see how it plays out.
Kai, I know you looked at it.
The defensive adjustment rating for Wright State is really something to look at. Out of 366 teams, they're 340th in defense when you adjust it based on strength of schedule. Also, so those ratings worry me a little bit. That's a game. Just I think same thing. I'm going to be on the same page with Case. I'm probably skipping the game. I think the line is almost perfect, and I just can't trust Wright State though with that defense against Virginia, knowing how well Virginia plays defense. I mean, if Virginia gets 12 more stops than Wright State gets, then that probably gets you the point differential you're looking for to cover the 18.
Yeah, and Kai, I know you've got like 17 televisions behind you. I know you look at a lot of different games. I know there's got to be a couple other games that you've been on fire the last few weeks. Well, basically since we started the show here in K4Wins. But what other games are there interesting? I'm still looking at St. John's, Northern Iowa, the UCF-UCLA game. I think is really interesting. That line's 5.5. I'm kind of staying away from the Queens and Purdue and the Prairie View A&Ms and the Floridas because the lines are so big. But if you got to take on those, but what else is sticking out to you today, Kai?
It's really crazy to talk about it and look at these, but you nailed it. The Central Florida UCLA game, it's later this afternoon, which is good because I still got to look and maybe Case can see if he has an update. If Tyler Bilodeau and Donovan Dent are going to play and how well they're going to, how healthy they are for UCLA, I think it's a key. I think if both of those guys are healthy and going, I think UCLA is a better team. Central Florida's outside shooting scares me a little bit, but UCLA's 3-point adjusted defense is top 50. So that helps them in that situation. And then I love, and I know I'm probably the only one, I love Queens catching 25.5, and I like them over their team total. I think that they can play. They're going to have to shoot really well, and they don't have the size inside with Purdue. But if Purdue just keeps on going down low, I think Queens can. They're not going to win the game, but I think they can get it. I think they can get it done. Those two games, and then one that nobody's really talked about. Northern Iowa and St. John's, and that line's dipped below 10. Northern Iowa has been playing really well, but their defense is what scares me. And if Zuba, I don't know how to pronounce Zuba's last name for St. John's. I think he's really looking for a payday next year, whether it be at St. John's again or going to the NBA. I look for him to probably have a huge game today, and believe it or not, St. John's covered that because of their defense.
Yeah,
does he have eligibility left? I feel like he played for Kansas pre-COVID.
Who knows? I mean, nobody knows if any of these kids have eligibility or not anymore.
It's crazy.
St. John's, a college basketball best, 27-6 against the spread this year. The Johnnies have been lighting it up big time, and of course, their coach knows all about that as well. Yeah, I think that is a really interesting game. I've been on the losing end. I've said that a lot on this show. Of Northern Iowa games too. Well, I love overs, and this over-under is hovering around 130, 132. I love games like that because, you may have like a 40-35 halftime line go, and you love those because if you got a 131 and you're sitting there at 75 points at halftime, you feel like you can go just pound your wings and your beer and just call it a night. Unfortunately, it seems like when you have those, sometimes you may have a 32-23 game at halftime too, and all of a sudden you're looking at having to put up a 90 spot in the second half. Which is not particularly good. Will Florida have any issues with Prairie View? Is this just like a mock women's basketball game? Is that what that is? It's 36.5 or 35.5. Anyone want to touch on that?
How do you bet that? I mean, I can't wait to hear.
Not money line, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just insane. Just like Iowa State their matchup today. These are just vastly superior teams, but how are those teams even incentivized to play these games? I mean, I don't know.
Ask Sienna from yesterday how incentivized
I like
they were.
Tennessee State plus the 25, just for the record.
Okay.
But maybe it was my perception again. But I've always considered Sienna. When I saw they were a 16 seed, they were the first team revealed on the show last Sunday, and I said they're a 16 seed. That's a program that's got a lot of history and has made some noise. So I don't know. But when I look at Prairie View and these really small schools, and I think to myself that this is going to be an absolute blowout. I didn't think Sienna would play like they did against Duke, but I don't have the same perception of some of these teams that you've been hearing about in the tournament for years and years.
Sienna was a 28.5 point dog and had them down 13 at halftime, and Duke had to have just a hell of a second half to actually win by 6.
Boozer had to take over.
Yeah, no turnovers, by the way. Boozer, 0 turnovers in the second half, 13 of 13 from the line, or 13 of 14. He was magical. He filled those shoes of one Caleb Foster for the short.
I think 13 of 14 from the line, too.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Nagamba.
He did some good things, but he was also given the benefit of playing for the team that he plays for, because he got away with all kinds of shit in the second half.
Yeah.
And every time somebody got within a foot of him, they called a foul.
Are you guys a little concerned? And obviously we know that Gong was also out for Duke, and I didn't realize that how important he was to the defensive aspect of the Duke Blue Devils. I knew that Foster going out, but he was more of a scorer than a defender. Gong was going to be out, is obviously going to be playing into this. Case, are people in Vegas a little scared? Because I know a lot of people had Duke winning it all. They were, of course, the number 1 overall seed. They were really good all season long. Their defense historically good. And we just think you can plug and play. And now all of a sudden you win by 6 against Siena. And of course, your next contest coming up here should be very, very interesting as they take on the Horned Frogs of TCU. Give it up at 11.5. That game's on Saturday coming up at 4:15. Should we be scared about Duke?
I mean, definitely a little bit. I think when I was on a week ago, I said that the injuries were just enough to push me. I personally just think Duke and Michigan at their best are the two best teams, and I thought the injuries were enough to push me to Michigan should be the favorite. And I looked at every sports book that's licensed in Vegas. There's like 10. Only one had Michigan the favorite. Everyone else still had Duke slightly. I guess the one reason why I wasn't totally panic mode, even going back a week ago, is I thought I'd never say his names. I feel like I'll butcher it, but I thought I knew Foster was gone, but I thought the big man would be back for the tournament, and he obviously wasn't yesterday. I kind of doubt that he'll play against TCU either with a foot injury. I still, from all the updates, it does sound like he's trending towards playing. So if I had to guess right now, as long as they beat TCU, I think he'll play in the Sweet 16. I think they're still tough. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely think if you're ignoring the Duke injuries, I mean, you're doing it the wrong way. It's not like they've been this team that relies on huge depth all year. I mean, they basically have there's 7 guys they really counted on during their great run of the season, and now they've lost 2 of them. So it certainly means something to me. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. That being said, I do think he'll probably be back next week if they advance.
Yeah, Duke 10-21 on over-unders this season. They've only gone over 10 of their 31 games. It's all interesting, too, because there's a lot of brackets where you can actually do a Sweet 16 bracket, which I always like, because if you blow your bracket up early, you can actually go back in and win some cash. So if you can find yourself a Sweet 16 bracket, maybe that's something that you can put Duke in if they make it that far. I think 11.5 is an interesting line. Kai, Kip, you guys got any interesting takes on the Duke thing at all? Does that scare you a little bit based on what you think? Or maybe a lot of people think, well, maybe got the hell scared out of them. Maybe they'll play better against TCU.
I mean, basketball is like other sports. You've got your routine and your repetition, and you've got the substitution patterns and the guys that play a certain amount of minutes. And when that's disrupted, you'd be crazy not to think it's going to be a factor. I didn't expect it to be in yesterday's game so readily apparent. But, I'm on my soapbox this week about these at the high level, the big conferences having the conference tournament, which is just a cash grab for the networks and the conferences. Getting guys hurt in those meaningless games that don't affect the seeding whatsoever. It's kind of frustrating to me that we have to watch this in football and basketball. I do love the tournament concept in the conference structure and all these small leagues, because it really gives a lot of teams a chance to get into the big tournament. But, it's just a waste of time for the SEC.
I have to back up. Coaches will tell you this, because we threw this question out. What's more important, the regular season championship or the conference championship? And 9 out of 10 coaches will tell you it's the conference championship. I mean, despite the fact, because it's only 4 or 5 days, it's only 4 or 5 games. I know you were mentioning the fact that the seeds don't change. Well, they're not going to change over the course of a 4 or 5 game schedule.
Yeah, but that means those games are no more important than the game in late November. It is a conference championship. Yeah. And if you get your team hurt in those couple playing 3 days in a row, I just think it's nonsense.
Yeah, it just gives you a chance, though, because when you're talking about how hard it is to win March Madness, it is incredibly difficult, and it is much more proverbially correct or interesting enough to you can actually win a conference championship, and you can hang a banner for that. You don't hang a banner for a seasonal championship, but for a conference championship. So that'll never go away. I understand where certainly the seedings don't change much, but they probably shouldn't. So
they don't change at all.
Yeah.
Hey, let's look at the late Friday night game tonight. Because we hadn't talked about it at all. Another SEC team.
Yes.
Missouri and Miami. Has anybody looked at Missouri's how well, and I use that term facetiously, how well they've played in the NCAA tournament lately? In 2012, they lost a 15 seed Norfolk State. In 2013, they lost to Colorado State. 2018, they lost to Florida State. 2021, they lost to Oklahoma. 2023, they actually got a win versus Utah State. Then they lost to 15 seed Princeton. Last year, they lost as a 6 seed number 11 Drake. Now they're the 10 against Miami.
So why is Miami only favored by 1.5 in that game?
I don't know. I don't think Missouri's very good. I'm sorry. I've had that opinion all year, and I just don't think they're that good a team. And I was surprised. I thought they might be, and I'm not surprised they got in, but I'm just not buying the Missouri team. They lost a bunch of games at home that I thought they should have won this year. I'm just not a fan.
Miami is 20-8 against spread, but yeah.
I don't like either of these teams. This is one where I wish they would have drawn different opponents. I didn't end up betting it, but I think I slightly lean Missouri. I mean, to me, it comes. I like Missouri's personnel a lot better, top to bottom. I mean, I know Miami might have the best player in Renault, but otherwise, this Miami roster was just kind of thrown together in Jai Lucas's first year, and Lucas deserves like all the credit in the world. I think I might have talked about it on another show. He's been an amazing coach. So it's like pick your poison. Do you go with the team that I think is way better coached in Miami and executes a little bit better, or do you go or a lot better, or do you go with Missouri, who I think is more talented and has the pieces? So I think I ended up picking Missouri, but I don't like it at all. I'd be picking against both these teams probably if they were in any other 7-10 game.
Well, we know who your son's going with.
Oh, yeah.
King Keefer loves the U.
Fan. Picked him to win the title.
What's the line tomorrow for Vandy, Nebraska, Case? I don't have it here.
2.5. Vanderbilt 2.5.
2.5, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm all over Vandy.
That actually,
I actually laid. I don't know why there was a stray. I made it just 2.5, so I was kind of frustrated. But someone here opened the money line minus 130, which 2.5 should be way higher than the minus 130. So I bet Vandy minus 130.
Yeah, let's get into some Saturday ball. That Vanderbilt game right there. It opened at 1.5 and went to 2.5. Let's talk some SEC basketball. I love that. And that line against Nebraska. Of course, Nebraska is their first victory all time. In March Madness, which is
what a victory amazing. It was.
No doubt.
Resounding.
It really was.
They beat Troy.
Yeah, that's true. But still,
the Trojans.
There's a lot of teams that struggle with teams like Troy, and Nebraska was not one of them.
And Troy was a good basketball team this year. It wasn't one of these 13 and 18 outfits that got in. They actually won their conference tournament, and they actually did pretty good. I want you guys
I think Troy, Georgia could have been an awesome matchup yesterday.
That would probably be in the 6th or 7th overtime right now.
I'm looking at my bracket, and I've got the Billikens. By the way, the Billikens lost 5 games this year. They lost to Stanford by 1. They lost to Rhode Island by 5. They lost to Dayton twice. I don't know how the hell they did that. They lost by 1, then they lost by 15. They get blown out against George Mason. I think they were banged up there. And here they come against a Michigan, a 1-seed catching 12.5. I've got them actually going to the Sweet 16. Tell me I'm crazy that the Billikens can hang with Michigan, DeMarcase.
You're crazy.
Okay. Crazy.
I love St. Louis. Yesterday they were my biggest bet. I ended up betting them spread, money line. That made my whole day. I probably would have had a losing day if not for St. Louis. But man, Michigan, I feel like, and I couldn't believe, like the bracket contest I looked, they're getting picked like 13% of the time to win the tournament. I think that's just a symptom of people only pay attention the last couple of weeks where they've been kind of sliding. But look, they've lost like 1 or 2 games. In the midseason when they were on their streak, I mean, they were playing at a historic level. This team, I think, is just, I think is ridiculous. I'm not saying they're going to for sure win the tournament, but I think this is one clear year where a clear favorite is just being underpicked, kind of underrespected. That being said, I didn't bet this game. I think I made it 13.5. It's 13. And St. Louis does have some characteristics that would make you think of that they could slay a team like this, that they have the highest rim and 3 rate in the nation. So basically every shot they take, is going to be smart. They're either shooting a 3 or they're getting to the rim. However, I don't think getting to the rim is going to do anything for you against Michigan. I think Michigan's rim protection is very strong. I'm kind of surprised. It seems like people are down on Michigan, and I don't get it. I think if you look at the body of work, they've been super impressive. So I'd be really, really surprised. I'd be shocked if Michigan lost before the Elite Eight. If you have to play Iowa State or even someone like Virginia or Tennessee in the Elite Eight, you could talk me into they have a bad day. But before then, I really don't see the Wolverines losing.
This is not sure Denny Crum's Louisville squad, but they're playing some good basketball. They get the first victory. Now they're going to play Tom Izzo's 8 times to a Final Four Michigan State team that obviously's got just lots of mojo. And the fact that Tom Izzo's only won 1 national title to me is crazy. But they're only giving up 4.5. Kip, what's your thoughts on Louisville and Michigan State?
I think this is a great matchup of blue blood programs, and I don't know which way I would lean here. I would tend to maybe go with the underdog because I just think this is going to be one of those down to the wire games. These are 2 teams that I don't think that they're the best versions of these programs that we've seen, but these are 2 really solid teams, and whoever survives this game, I think, can be kind of a major factor throughout the rest of the tournament. So I'd have to lean Louisville just because they're the underdog, but I think this is one of the most intriguing matchups of all day Saturday. Saturday.
Yeah, whoever gets that game, of course, they're in that bracket there with UConn, Furman, UCF, and UCLA. So that should be an interesting little lineup.
And we've been talking about UConn, from the Big East, that we're all kind of like, it's UConn and it's Hurley and all that, but is it how much of that's reputation? How much of that is realism? I don't think they're on par with the UConn teams we've seen that winning championships in the last couple of years. So we'll see. I think whoever survives this game is a real factor in that region.
Kai, should Izzo be scared?
I think Furman can stick inside that 21 today, but I know I don't have to say who I think is going to win the Michigan State Louisville game. Do I, Case?
No, but I don't have a strong feeling either. So it's not the trolling me about Tom Izzo is not going to work today.
I'm not betting against Tom Izzo in March.
He finally covered a March game. I think it's his first one, and
he's been getting
record the last 10 years to probably 36% from 33% yesterday. I will say I think I'd be all over Louisville if Michael Brown was playing, but I think he makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
That I'd probably lean Michigan State, but I didn't bet this game.
The game of the day tomorrow. The game of the day. There might be 300 points scored in that game. High Point and Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to be so much fun to watch. Now, I say that, so it'll probably be 52-51. But the way those two teams are playing, Arkansas's offense looks really good. And damn, High Point can score.
It's only 11.5. The over-under 168.5. It actually came down off of 169.5. A little bit of surprise. I thought it'd be north of 170 for sure. But, yeah, that's going to be a fun game to watch. The last game of the night, 8:45. Arkansas, obviously, and no one was talking about Acuff. We were the entire season. He's a really good basketball player, and Arkansas wins the SEC. That may be one of your reasons why we have championships, because Arkansas, I don't think anyone saw them winning an SEC championship this year, and there you go, and you can hang your hat on that one. So there you go.
And they went from being on the 4 line to being on the 4 line. It's good. Congratulations, Arkansas, for cutting down the nets.
There you have it. Some other games going off tomorrow. We got A&M and Houston. I think that's kind of an interesting matchup. A&M's catching 10.5, over under 143.5. It opened. It's now to 141.5. All the money's coming late on Houston, and of course we know who their coach is. He's always good. Houston going to fly by the A&M Aggies here. Kip, what's going to go with the game tomorrow?
Yeah, I just think Houston's playing at a really high level, and I'm just not big on this A&M team. They really kind of revealed their real selves down the stretch. They've kind of stabilized here a tad lately, but I think Bucky Ball is still a year or two away from maturity. That's a lot of points. I got to say that, but I think Houston has no problem dispatching them. So if I had to, I would suck it up and take the Cougars, because I just think they're vastly superior here.
Both teams really good against, not so much straight up and not so much against the spread, but over-unders remarkably under in a lot of these games, too. And you think about A&M's and the way they play defense. That's where, I heard Bruce Pearl last night talking about A&M, and he's talking about they're one of the best defensive teams in the SEC, and they finished 10th. He's like, that should tell you about how strong the SEC is. They finished 10th in the league, but they're one of the best defensive teams out there. Okay.
That's just because Bruce is still harping trying to get Auburn into the NCAA.
Yeah.
He's thinking they're going to slide them in.
Ask that question. He didn't have an answer either. They're like, hey, by the way, if Miami had played Auburn, do you think perhaps they would have had a better shot there than SMU? And he didn't answer. He just kind of looked down at the floor and just called it a night. But they're still
the way Miami and Ohio played yesterday, they could have beat a lot of people. The way they were shooting,
they were.
I don't even remember.
And the thing is they had so many wide open shots, man. They looked like their threes were open, didn't they?
They move the ball, and they know what their teammates are doing. I mean, they move the ball as well as anybody in the country, in my opinion, when it comes to – and they are so unselfish. Watching them, and I've seen High Point 2 or 3 times also, because made a lot of money on High Point this year. Those two teams move the ball really, really well. I mean, it's not like Arkansas where Acuff's coming down and 80% of the time he's shooting or he's passing to the one guy. You guard – really one person, you go with that. High Point, just like Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio, all 5 guys shoot threes. All 5 guys can get out there and get after it. And they very, very, very unselfish. Just extremely unselfish. Still really high on these two teams. And that's one of the reasons why, and we talked about it, Tuesday, we talked about it last week, and the NCAA tournament this weekend is one of my favorite. It's my favorite weekend of the year, because Thursday you start watching basketball at 11. Thank God I don't have a boss for work, so he can't get mad at me. Where I watched it, yesterday from 11 to past midnight. Today I'm gonna do the same damn thing, Saturday and Sunday. The only day that's anywhere close to this is opening day for Major League Baseball, where it's the same friggin' thing. You watch baseball, and then for me, Father's Day, watching the final Sunday of the U.S. Open is incredible. But this weekend, you've got to love this over just about any other weekend in sports.
It really is fantastic. I mean, you're right. You're spot on. Another game that's fantastic, too, is Texas and the Zags. There's this tag. There's Fuse team just kind of bebopping around. No one's really talking about them. They only lost 3 games all year long, taking on the big, tough SEC, Kip. And the Longhorns, of course, have this coach named Sean Miller. I hate Sean Miller. I think that they totally took advantage of my Xavier Musketeers. They gave him a job when they didn't have to, and he came in and just basically duped them after a year and split and didn't do shit for them either. Outside, get them in some trouble with the NCAA. Anywho, he is now the head coach with the Longhorns, and they're catching only 6.5 against the Zags. What do you think about those Texas Longhorns?
Yeah, I'm skeptical about them as well. There's several SEC teams that I'm not that high on. I'll give Texas their props. Of course, they were one and done in the SEC tournament. They lost to Oklahoma the last regular season game of the year, which was surprising at home. They kept Oklahoma with a heartbeat. But I got to tell you, I'll give Texas credit for going out and executing and getting by the play-in game, which is not a chore that you would expect the highfalutin boys from Austin to have to undertake. But that being said, I think it ends here. I just think Gonzaga's probably got a lot better, DNA for this spot. And Texas athletics, I think, continues to disappoint with the Longhorns being ousted. Give me the Zags tomorrow.
All right, we're up against it, guys. Anything else we've missed? We've gone through almost every single game out there. Is there anything else that we've missed? We got games kicking off here in just about a half an hour. My seat is getting warm, so it's time for me to boogie and watch hoops all day long. I have also cleared my schedule. I'm with you, Kai. It's great to be your own business, but it doesn't mean the kids won't be having peanut butter and jelly sandwiches tonight while I'm eating a plate full of wings somewhere else. But that's still the way it goes in the Curry household. But any other games you guys pique your interest, and we'll let you fly. What you got? Okay, then. All right, perfect. I think we went through every game. I think we did.
Hey, we're 9-2 the last 2 days. Wednesday 5-0 with the NIT, and I only say it because we mentioned it. Dayton, we hammered Dayton. They were -1.5 and won by like 860.
There you go.
Hail to the Flyers! Woohoo!
Yeah, so that was a good one. And hey, we'll be back. I mean, we're going to have the NCAA obviously all weekend, but NIT Monday and Tuesday. Got some good teams. I think Dayton is a 1 seed also with Auburn, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
They're 2.
Yeah.
They're 2 seed. Yeah.
So there's a couple of teams in there I think could do really well, but watch for Auburn to get upset before they get to the final.
Keep an eye on that Auburn bracket. You can hang a banner for that. You can say, yes, in 2026, we made the NIT and we had the Auburn bracket. We had home games of the Auburn bracket. That's pretty impressive.
I bet Auburn to win the NIT. I just think they're so much better than the rest of the teams. I had read they'd have no one opting out. They did end up having one guy out, and they didn't look great against South Alabama. But I hate myself for doing it. But I'm Auburn all the way.
You know what's kind of pathetic about that, though? I'd almost rather my team. Now, the UAB didn't even make the NIT. Okay. The fact that Mark Ingram's telling me last week, well, they won 20 games, and I was surprised just because of their coaching. I thought maybe they'd get it in, but I almost rather my team lose in the first round of the NIT and just say, this is a joke, just get out of here, as opposed to actually trying really hard. I don't know, if Auburn wins the NIT, isn't it worse than if they don't? Am I missing something here? Do you want to say you've won the NIT?
I mean,
do you ever want to say you won the NIT?
Out. If you don't want to win, why would you play?
I don't know.
And the whole idea of the NIT back in the day was you got to go to New York and play in the Garden. Now you go play in some second-rate place in Indianapolis. It sucks.
You get to go play in Auburn is where you get to play. All right, guys, thank you very much. Have yourself a wonderful weekend. Enjoy one of the greatest weekends in college sports history. We love it around here. K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com. Check them out and go get them, partners. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.